Hi, everyone. I'm so glad to have you here as part of our respectful, responsible, and engaged training. This training is going to be a little different than it normally is. Normally, school is going, everything's normal, but nothing has been normal about this past week. And so we are definitely going to address that here. We're going to talk about strategies that you can use no matter where you teach, whether you're in the classroom, whether you're online, whether you're planning for next month, next year, it doesn't matter. We're going to have strategies for you no matter where or when or how you're teaching. These strategies will be helpful for you. So I'm really so glad to see people already joining us. Welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Would you take a second and introduce yourself in the chat? And also, can you let me know if you can hear me? We always want to make sure that everything's working correctly. So drop a message, let me know that you can hear me, hopefully. And also, please feel free to introduce yourself. You can share. There's so many options. You can share where you teach. You can share what grade you teach. You can share how long you've been teaching. You can share what's happening in your state right now. I don't know. I don't know how much we want to think about that right now. But I'm so glad that you guys are here. Well, we already have over 100 people joining us, and we're still about 8 minutes away from starting. So I'm so glad that you guys are here. As I've been talking to teachers, I found that, there's just so many different things going on. Some of you, there's some teachers that are just completely overwhelmed trying to transfer real quick to distance learning. Some of you guys, though, are finding yourselves with extra time on your hands. So regardless of what's going on in your life, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to try to have an encouraging time together. It's just good to come together and know that we're all here trying to do the best we can for our students. And I pray that this session will be a huge encouragement to you, that you'll come away with a whole bunch of great ideas. And those of you just joining us, I was going through and preparing for the presentation and realizing that a lot of these strategies that I was planning to talk about can really easily be adapted for distance learning. So this is going to be helpful. If Lord willing, we're back in school next month, they'll be helpful. If we're not and we have to teach in distance learning, they'll be helpful. If you don't see your students again till next fall, they'll be helpful. So no matter what happens, I believe these strategies will be a really big help to you. And I can't wait to dive into them. Welcome everyone that's joining us from Atlanta, from Jamaica, from Ohio. That's where I am. From North Dakota. It's so great to see all of you. Yes. And spring breaks haven't been a little bit disrupted this year too. It's just all out chaos right now, isn't it? So welcome. So glad to have all of you. Georgia, Cincinnati, Wisconsin. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you guys so much for being here. I hope that it's encouraging to you. It's encouraging to me to see all of you coming out here, showing up here, wanting to use this time to grow and improve and serve your students the best that you can. And I can't wait to dive into some of the strategies about how we can do that. And we're also just here to encourage each other too. It's so, God wired us for human connection. He didn't design life to be lived alone. And so it's hard when we're isolated from our normal support systems. And so I'm glad that you're here. We can kind of take this hour and just focus on our students and on supporting each other. And I know really, Angela says it's nice to do something professional. I agree. It's really nice to sometimes just step away from the news and everything that's happening and focus on our profession, on bettering ourselves, on doing what we can to support our students, whether it's distance learning, whether it's back in the classroom, in the Lord willing near future or far future. It doesn't matter. We're going to be talking about all kinds of strategies for that. So while you're waiting, as I said, if you're just joining us, please introduce yourself. We'd love to hear where you're from, what you teach. It's so great to see all of you guys. Welcome, Laura and Courtney and Kimberly and Kelly and Allison and Shauna. And those are only a few of you guys. So welcome to all of you guys that are joining us. We're so glad to have you here. You can share how long you've been teaching if you'd like. You can share what age and subject you teach or where you're from. It's really totally up to you. Whatever you would like to share. It's just great to see that you are here. It's awesome. How many of you guys were here on Monday night for management solutions training? That was more of like a beginner level for those that are kind of struggling to create that calm learning environment. But we had a really great time on Monday night. We had over 900 teachers on Monday night, which was just insane, especially for all that was happening. It was such a wonderful time. And so I'm really looking forward to this. I'm praying that technology cooperates. I just told my husband earlier this day, I said, I hope that we don't break the internet. I don't mean we like this webinar is going to break the internet, but I mean like collectively, everyone working online, everything going online. I said, I hope we don't break the internet, but we're just taking it one day at a time over here. So good. A lot of you guys were there on Monday. I'm so glad that you found it helpful. I'm glad you're back for tonight. And then a lot of you I know are joining us for the first time this evening, which is wonderful as well. We're going to be talking today about a little bit more, you could call them advanced strategies. They're designed more for if you already, have a basic level of classroom control and about how to connect with your students. But, I will tell you, that's one advantage of distance learning is you can just mute students, So that element of classroom control is a lot easier. And so these strategies are relevant no matter where you teach. It's about how to connect your students. It's about how to foster personal responsibility. Honestly, these strategies might be needed now more than ever. So I really am excited to dive into them with you. All right, we're going to get started here in about 3 minutes. We're just giving everyone a chance to get on before we start. We're over 350 people here now, which is so exciting. I was talking to our team and to my husband earlier and just saying, man, I don't know what to expect for these trainings. Things are changing. We're trying to adapt and share helpful strategies, but man, things are just changing by the day. I don't know if you feel that. It's just been crazy. So I'm glad that you're here. I'm really excited that you're here, and I'm looking forward to having a great time together. Those of you that are just joining us, feel free to hop in the chat and share where you're from, what you teach. I'm so glad to see everyone joining us from Texas and El Paso in New Jersey, and from distance learning and all these things. Carrie says, I'm looking forward to this. I always get... sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. Linda, I think these are needed with remote learning as much as in face-to-face situations. Relationships matter. I completely agree. I think actually some of these things that we're talking about they're just as relevant, if not more relevant and important, if we find ourselves transitioning to distance learning. And it will be interesting to see what happens if we're heading back to the classroom in a few weeks. I don't know. We just don't know. I'm all trying not to look too far ahead because we have no idea what's going to happen in the next few weeks. No idea. It could go one way, it could go the other, it could stay the same, who knows. So if we're back in the classroom, these strategies will definitely be helpful for you. In that case, it's kind of this distance learning phase is just kind of like a temporary thing. But if it lasts longer, we're probably going to find ourselves trying to support our students more and more. And these strategies, like I said, are going to be more and more relevant as you're seeking to have students be responsible for themselves, right? That's going to be really important to promote responsibility for our students. How do we engage them when we're not there physically? All these things. So I'm really excited to dive into these strategies for you. Like I said, they're going to be relevant in person or in distance learning. They're just going to look a little bit different. And we'll talk about that together. Oh, welcome, you guys. So glad to see everyone joining us. We've got about 1 more minute before we're going to get started when we're over 400 strong, which is so exciting. Welcome to everyone. So glad to have you guys here. We're going to get officially started in just about 1 minute. So if you're just joining us, hop in, introduce yourself. We were talking about how these strategies are going to be relevant whether you're distance learning or in the classroom. So we got you. I pray that they will be helpful for you. I really do think that they will be. All right, this is awesome. All right, can't wait to get started, but I'm going to give people just another minute. We don't want to miss out on the people that are just now joining into us. So go ahead and hop on in. I want to say at the end of the training, there is going to be a time for Q&A. So at any point, if you have a question, you can go ahead and share it. And one of my Sarah, our customer service manager, is in here to help us out. Hi, Sarah. And she can flag it as a question and I can answer it at the end. So at any point, if you have a question, feel free to go ahead and put it in the chat. I might answer it as we're in the middle of it, or I might save it till the end. But either way, we'll make sure we answer as many questions as we can. All right, it is officially 8:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, this is the slide for just in case anyone can't hear me, they can know that it's them, not us. All right, let me ask you a few questions. And I want you to kind of think back because this last week has just been insane, but think back. It's hard to even remember. 2 weeks ago when you were in the classroom, have you ever felt like getting your students to respect each other and you is an uphill battle. Have you ever felt like you're almost forcing students to learn against their will? Do you ever wish that rather than it being this constant battle, you and your students could actually work together for a change? Well, if so, you are not alone. And you can see that by the yes, 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 yes coming in from the chat. And so these, like I said, and these problems look different online, but we're going to run into them if this goes on any longer than a few weeks, which in many states it for sure is. So we're going to talk today about 5 steps to, first of all, earn your students' respect, which is, like I said, important in no matter where you're teaching. We're going to talk about how to build strong relationships, classroom community, and a teamwork mentality, which is possibly even more, like I said, building that community. Since so much of our community is cut off, we can definitely do that. We're going to talk about how to engage students so that they're excited to learn. Once again, even more important when we're not there in person. Talk about how to help students take responsibility for their own learning, which is, once again, going to have to happen if you're online, is important in the classroom as well. So before we get into the material, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Linda Cardamus. I taught middle school math in a school in Ohio before I started having my own kids. And when I stepped away from teaching, God led me through his gracious plan to start Teach for the Heart. And I'm wondering how many of you guys have been part of Teach for the Heart for a while? And how many of you, this is your first event with us? I'm always interested to see what kind of mix that we have here. I am the creator of online courses Classroom Management 101, as well as our newer course Beyond Classroom Management, which goes into more detail about a lot of the things that we're going to talk about today. And then I'm the author of books like Create Your Dream Classroom, Take Heart and Teach, and Teach Uplifted. Oh, so many people that are new to Teach for the Heart. That's awesome. And so many people they've been here for a while as well. So thank you guys both for being here. We're really, really excited to have you. All right, if you have your notes printed out, go ahead and grab them now and get them ready. If you don't have them, you could try to print them now, but what I recommend instead is that you simply write down this URL so that you can print them out later if you want, and just grab a pencil and paper for now. But they are at teachfortheheart.com/notes1 if you need them. All right, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to take just a moment, just in light of everything, and pray for us, pray that this will be a helpful time for everybody. Father, thank you so much that no matter what happens, we are never out of your hands, that you control everything, that you work everything together for good to those who are your called. And so, Father, I pray that you will just calm all of our hearts, especially just in this moment, allow us to focus, allow us to learn strategies that will be helpful. Father, I pray that you will take my words, make me say things that will be helpful and relevant for the teachers, and help each teacher to walk away with at least 1, 2, 3 strategies that will make a difference for them both now and when they're back in the classroom. Father, I just pray that this will be encouragement and a help to them. Be with the technology, Father. We place it all in your hands. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right. Here we go. We're going to talk about a 5-step plan. The first step is to earn your students' respect, okay? So here's the thing. One of the fastest ways to lose students' respect is when your classroom looks like this. And as I said, we might have a bit of a reprieve from this actually with distance learning, where you can simply mute everybody. But as you consider, the future, I will say one of the fastest ways to lose respect is when you don't hold students accountable, when you allow things to really get out of control. So I did want to, before we got into more strategies, touch base on this just a little bit. It's so important that we start out by creating a conducive learning environment for our students, a place where it's calm and they can focus and learn without at least too many distractions. So one of the biggest keys there is to have high expectations for our students, okay? So we need to always be holding them accountable and expect a lot of them. Now, I will edit this in this interim period where we are trying out distance learning and everything is crazy. We obviously need to temper our expectations as far as maybe We have to consider the circumstances. But nonetheless, we might be surprised and pleasantly pleased at what our students are capable of. So once again, in the interim, in the short term, we're giving tons of, we're just making it day by day. But the longer it goes on and the more we adjust, if needed, we can raise those expectations and start expecting things more of them as things settle into a normal. It's so important if you're creating a conducive learning environment to deal with problems. Letting problems go, whether you're distance learning or in the classroom, is not going to help. Okay. So deal with problems while they're small. Okay. Don't let things get out of control. Don't feel like, I'm going to let things go because typically little problems don't stay little. It's so important to be consistent. We know that. We know it's important to be consistent, but it's sometimes easier said than done. So we absolutely need to make it a priority to be consistent in what we expect and in holding our students accountable to the rules and expectations that we've put in place. So how do we do this? Well, number one, we work on procedures. And as you move into if you move into distance learning, or if you're planning for when you head back in the classroom, either way, we want to work on our procedures. We want to have expectations, practice them with the students, and then hold them accountable and expect them to follow them. Here's an important concept. It's good to set rules that you can actually enforce. So in other words, if you have a rule that you have no way of enforcing, that's very challenging. So you want to be wise in your rules. And one way to do that, actually, a little tip is, I love this idea from Love and Logic, is to use I statements more than you use you statements. So what I mean by that is, instead of saying you need to turn in your work on time, you could say, I grade work, or I give full credit to work that is turned in on time. Okay, that's just a blanket example where you're saying this is what I do versus what I say for you. Or in other words, instead of just saying, don't blurt out an answer, say, I call on students who raise their hands. So you're talking about what do I do, because you can control what you do. So that's one way to help yourself be consistent. Another is not arguing. It takes two people to argue. It absolutely does. So you can choose not to argue with your students. And Love and Logic, I pulled a lot of these ideas from various sources. Some of them are from Love and Logic, and I love, they talk about, you can just have kind of a standard response, like, I care about you too much to argue. Or, I only argue on Saturdays from 1 to 3 and just something like that. And just, you can just not argue. It's amazingly simple, but amazingly powerful. Okay, I was just getting into this like just a few quick points, because we did a whole training on this, on, how to earn their respect, how to create that calm, conducive learning environment in Classroom Management Solutions last Monday night. So if you feel like, man, I need help with that area, then I would recommend you heading to teachfortheheart.com/training. So head to or actually don't head there, sorry. Write down that URL, just write it down, and you can head there later. The replay is available, so you can watch it anytime over the next few weeks and get some more ideas there. We also have a full classroom management training called Classroom Management 101 that you can check out as well. I'll share a little bit more about that later. So that's step one. Let's stop and make it personal. What is one tweak that you can make to improve your classroom management? And this might be more when you eventually head back in the classroom, or it could be something that you want to apply to distance learning, up to you. But write one thing down in your notes and then share it here in the comments. Just one tweak that you'd like to make to improve your classroom management. And if you excuse me just a second, I lost your guys' comments here. Let me pull them back up. One moment. Okay. Thought we fixed that, but it didn't. Okay. Learning not how to argue. Use I statements. The URL was teachfortheheart.com/training. Teachfortheheart.com/training. Working on being consistent, not arguing. I love all this. Great. These are such great takeaways. Awesome. All right. Well, you're sharing that. I'm going to move on to step number 2. Step 2, we're going to talk about how to build strong relationships, classwork community, and a teamwork mentality. I know I keep repeating this, but this is important when you head back to the classroom. This is important online, maybe even more important. So we're going to talk about some ways that we can do it and how they can be adapted. There are so many ways to build relationships. We're just going to cover a few. And before I get into this phase of the training, I want to say I am about to rattle off a ton of ideas for you. And the goal is not to implement every one. Okay, I want you to hear that loud and clear. Do not feel like you need to do every single thing I'm about to share with you. You will feel way too overwhelmed and you'll end up doing none of them. Okay. What you want to be doing is listening for one or two in each section that resonate with you. That's it. Okay. Just a few things that you think, I can do that. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to be sharing a bunch. Just listen for those few ones that you actually want to try. Don't try to do everything. Make sense? Okay. Here we go. First of all is the 2x10 strategy. And this strategy is particularly helpful for students that are kind of your more troublesome students or challenging students. So how it works is you identify your most challenging students, and then you talk to them for 2 minutes a day for 10 days. And teachers have reported just amazing results with this intentionality. So if you're in school, you just find them in the hallway and talk to them for a second after class. It doesn't even have to be about anything school related. In fact, it's better if it's not. But I would submit to you, if you're moving, this is actually a great time, whether you're doing distance learning or you're just kind of absent right now, this is a great time to reach out to your challenging students. Make an intentionality to grab the phone and call them, to check in on them, to send them an email, whatever it is, just find some ways to connect with them. Actually send them something in the mail. I think it'll mean a lot to them right now. And so maybe as you're working to connect with your students, be extra intentional about the ones that are most challenging in building that relationship. Another thing that you want to do is really use empathy with all your students. And once again, no matter where you're teaching. So here's the thing. When we hold our students accountable with empathy, that creates a powerful, powerful impact. All right, so let me ask you this. What is your tone like when you have to enforce consequences or hold a student accountable for something? I don't know about you, but sometimes I'm not a yelly teacher. I don't know if any of you guys get into yelling, but I don't yell, but I often get very matter of fact, just like, well, this is what you did. This is what happens. This is how we're dealing with it. And while that's better than yelling, it's not the best either. If we have an empathetic response, that is really powerful. So what I mean by empathizing is that you're just simply empathizing with what they're dealing with. That doesn't mean you let them off the hook. Absolutely not. That's where I said accountability with empathy is where you get impact. You hold students accountable. You don't lower the bar, but you do it with empathy. So as I said, think about it for yourself. What's your normal tone? What's your default response when students complain or give excuses or argue? Do you get mad? Do you get upset? Or do you hold them accountable with empathy? And leading with empathy is important because it shows and reminds students that we are on the same team and that we're working together to help them. So what does this actually look like? Well, in many cases, the easiest way to do this is to pick a go-to empathetic phrase or sound. So it's very simple. If you say, oh, that's so, so students, let's say, I'm just going to use some more traditional examples here, but let's say a student says, oh, I didn't have time to do my homework last night. We had a basketball game. And maybe your response is just, oh, that's tough. Well, I give full credit to work that is turned in on time. But did you see how you led with, oh, that's tough, right? So it's not fake. It's just realizing that's tough. Like that's unfortunate that's what happened. But so I'm going to empathize with your situation, but I'm still going to hold you accountable. So you can pick a go-to empathetic phrase like that's tough or, oh no, or that's so sad. Or it can even be a sound like, or, oh, try incorporating it into your interactions with your students. Here's another strategy in building community. And honestly, if you've never done, how many of you have done morning meetings before in your classroom? And how many of you have never done them? I'm going to talk about how a morning meeting works in a traditional classroom. But I am going to say, if you this is something that could be really powerful to do with your students, especially in this distance learning situation. I actually I just put together a video for a video tutorial for how to use Zoom. If you aren't using Zoom, it's actually super easy. It was like only a 7-minute video of how to get set up with Zoom. Um, but this would be a great way to keep your class feeling connected and build community. It's great in school, but I think it would be even more impactful now. And this is not just you just have more opportunity possibly now. So if you need that tutorial on how to use Zoom, we just released it on our YouTube channel at Teach for the Heart, and it's also in our Facebook group, teachfortheheart.com/Facebook is where you can join the group, teachfortheheart.com/Facebook. And I think I'm going to be releasing it on the blog soon, but things are moving a mile a minute. Anyhow, what is a morning meeting? As I said, some of you guys have tried this in your class. I'm seeing a lot of people sharing about it. What a morning meeting is traditionally is your classroom. In an elementary classroom, it would be first thing in the morning. In a secondary classroom, it typically is more with your class advisory or your homeroom. So I would not try to do this with every single class if you have six classes and 100 students. But if you have a class advisory or a homeroom class, then putting together a morning meeting, it could be daily, it could be weekly, okay? So don't feel like, oh, I have to do this every morning. If you did this in this distance learning phase with your students once or twice a week, it would make a huge difference even, okay? So in a typical morning meeting, students greet each other, they share, and then they also practice skills, all kinds of skills, academic skills, social skills, emotional skills, learning, what are they called? Skills, how you learn, right? How to learn better. Why can't I think what that's called right now? So all these different skills. There we go. Learning, social, and academics, and communication skills. Yes. So all these different skills are practiced. Morning meetings really help you build a community of mutual respect because you're showing up every morning. Students are greeting each other. They're practicing these skills. They're sharing with each other. And so it's a great way to connect, to see each other, and to, like I said, build that classroom community in person or online. So I want to ask you, is it a worthwhile investment of your time? Obviously, if you're in school and you only have 7 hours, 6 hours in your day, it might feel like, man, I don't have time for a morning meeting. They typically are around 20 minutes long or so. But think about it. It could be a really good strategy, especially if it ends up your students are more engaged, they're more focused, they're more respectful of each other, and they're more excited to learn, and everything's connecting together. Like, that is worth it. You're going to save so much time, and you're going to be covering so many things. Your students are going to have so many more skills that apply across the board. So consider if it might be a worthwhile investment. And then once again, in secondary, you don't have time to do this with your every 40-minute class. It would take half the class. But it's very helpful for class advisories or homerooms. And it also could be a good idea if you have a long block. So let's say you have like a 90-minute block with your students, then it's something that you could maybe do once a week in a blocked class. It could be worth the time investment. So definitely something to consider about. Now, a lot of you are asking, how could I do this online? Zoom is a tool where you can do video conferencing. So your students can all meet online at Zoom, and it's actually really easy to do. Like I said, I recorded a video tutorial. If you just write down Teach for the Heart YouTube channel, look us up on Teach for the Heart. Look us up on YouTube, and I just released it earlier this morning, so you can find it there. All right, now I will admit to you before we move on that I did not really teach you how to do morning meetings. And that's because teaching how to do morning meetings would be like an entire training and more in and of itself. Okay, so if you're interested in morning meetings, you can find tons of information online. There's a book called The Morning Meeting Book, and there's one for secondary called, I think it's called The Responsive Class Advisory Meeting. I also teach like pretty much what you need to know in our Beyond Classroom Management course, which I'll share later. So if you want to know more, definitely to learn more about that. I was kind of just wanting to share enough so that you would be able to decide whether or not it's something you wanted to look into more. All right, like I said, I just gave you a lot of ideas. You're not going to be able to do them all. So let's take a second and reflect. Which of these strategies do you most want to try? Write it down and then share it in the comments. Which of these strategies do you most want to try? I'm also going to see if we have a couple questions here. I might have time to answer 1 or 2 questions before we move on. Let's see. A lot of you guys using it. Krista says, can I give more examples of empathetic phrases? It's kind of going to match your personality. Oh no, that's so sad. Ooh, that's tough. Or just like I said, the sound, ooh. You know, it kind of just depends on what feels natural to you. You guys are saying you want to use empathy, the 2x10, try out Zoom. I love hearing all these. Yes, once again, just pick 1 or 2. Don't feel like you have to do them all. For sure. All right, as you guys are sharing, we're going to move on to step 3. How can we better engage our students? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever seen your students excited to learn? Well, when you do, you know, it kind of feels like this. Like, yes, I'm on cloud 9. It is the most amazing thing when they're genuinely excited to learn. And it does not have to be an impossible thing. We can experience this more and more. So let's talk about a few different ways. Once again, we're going to cover a bunch of ideas here. Just pick out a couple. All right, don't try to do them all. Let me ask you a question. Who does the most work in your class? Is it your students? Or are you the one doing all the work and they're kind of sitting passively? Here's the thing. The one who is working is the one who is learning. And as we are completely rethinking how we teach with distance learning, this is something to really consider, that the one who is working is the one who is learning. But here's the thing. There's 2 pitfalls when it comes to that. Pitfall number 1 is your teaching being all lecture. It's all you teaching or a video of you teaching or whatever. It's all lecture and the students are just sitting watching. That's it. That's all day, every day. That's not really good. That they're being very passive. Even if you're the most interesting teacher in the world, they're not learning as much as they can because they're not doing much. Taking notes is something, but once again, it's pretty passive. Pitfall number 2, though, is to go the opposite extreme and say, okay, I'm not going to teach it all. I'm just going to give it to them and say, okay, you figure it out. Well, no direct instruction isn't good either because it's just students do need some direct instruction. They need to have some clear teaching before being released to learn and go and apply it on their own. So that is a pitfall to fall into, is just say, okay, you know, our lecture's done. Well, no, you still need direct instructions. We need both pieces, which once again, if you're reinventing for distance learning, we do need direct instruction. So what is the key? We need a combination of direct instruction and then students applying and practicing it. That very simple formula is kind of all you need. Combination of direct instruction. It can be short, doesn't have to necessarily be long, but what do they need to know? And then they go and apply and practice it. Let's talk first about direct instruction. How can we make direct instruction engaging? Well, first of all, we should try to make it interesting, right? Let your passion for your subject shine through. Your lectures shouldn't be boring, even if the topic is boring. If you're excited about it, that makes it kind of exciting, at least more exciting than it would have been, right? Remember that the goal of engaging does not mean necessarily fun. Okay. So sometimes we think in order to be engaging, it has to be like, oh, we're having so much fun. Not necessarily. It can be thought-provoking or relevant, right? If students are thinking deeply about a question or about a topic, that is engaging. If it's relevant to what's happening in their lives, that is engaging. So it doesn't have to be fun. So if you're teaching something, ask yourself, so what? So what does this have to do with anything? So why does this matter? You know, I learned this, so what? And when you answer that question, then you can use that in your direct instruction relevant to your students. Another way to make direct instruction engaging is get students involved. Incorporate writing. This is, once again, no problem on distance learning. If you're doing a video class, You would say, okay, everyone stop, and I want you to write down the answer to this question. And everyone then is actually active in doing it, whether you're in person or online. You can incorporate writing. You can use micro lectures and partner sharing. Okay. So now this is going to be a little bit challenging online, but you actually could use online. You could use chat box. I don't, you can get creative on how you use this online, but let me explain how it works in real life first. So a micro lecture means you teach, this is popularized by whole brain teaching. You teach just a short concept, one concept at a time. So it's like 30 seconds to 2 minutes. You teach one thing. And then you have students turn to a partner and tell each other what they just taught. And it's really powerful because they're actually directly engaging with each other. And they're by forcing them to tell someone else, they're making sure they actually know and understand it. Okay, so that one might be a little bit challenging to do online. You could get creative with it. There's actually a lot of ways, but I don't, we could think through how to do that. But that's one idea for in person. Adding movement, you can totally do this online. Tell your students, get up, move around. There's lots of ways you can add movement. You can use motions in younger grades, in upper grades. If you're in a classroom, you can, have a ball that you're like passing back and forth to the students. There's just all kinds of different things that you can do. Just get creative in how you can add movement to your classroom. Those are some ideas for direct instruction. Now let's talk about practice. How can we make practice engaging? Let's say students need to practice a math skill or something like that. Well, here's first of all an important thing. You know what makes something not engaging? When students are lost. If students are lost, that's when they stare at the paper and just go, I give up. Okay, so make sure you teach the skill first. Start by teaching the skill. Then practice it together before you have students practice on their own. Okay, so teach it first, practice it together, then have them practice it on their own. If you're doing video lessons and you're not having people with you, at least teach it first before you have them do it on your own. Now, I want to talk for a second about worksheets versus engaging activities. It is nothing wrong with a worksheet, but when you're able to, if you can switch it out for an engaging activity, that is better. Now, give yourself, if you're moving to distance, this is not the time, okay, to stress out about using worksheets, okay? Right now, give yourself grace. Do whatever is necessary, okay? A worksheet is way better than nothing, okay? Don't feel guilty about this. We are it is okay to do that, okay? But as you're able to, if you find an engaging activity where students are still practicing, that's always better. So here's one of my favorite activities, which unfortunately can't be done in distance learning, but you can file this away for later. It's called Quiz Trade. So how it works is each student has a note card, and on it, it's just like, it's a flashcard, an answer on the question on the front, answer on the back. And they get up and everyone just pairs up with someone right next to them. And they ask each other the question. They quiz each other. Then they trade cards and find a new partner. Quiz, and trade. Find a new partner, quiz, and trade. And until time is up. I love this strategy so much. Can't wait to get back in the classroom and try it. There's way more of these. Some of these are definitely more for the classroom, but a lot of them might be, some of them you can apply to distance learning. So if you want to write down, this URL is in your notes, so you can write it down. teachfortheheart.com/rethink worksheets has about 7 or 8 different ideas for how you can replace, take an existing worksheet and turn it into an activity without hardly any work. Alicia said Kahoot homework. Yeah, Kahoot is actually one of the things on here. Kahoot, you can do, I don't know if you're familiar with Kahoot. It's where you do like the game show style review or quiz. You can create a challenge that students do on their own time. That's a great option. For that too. I'm getting so many ideas in here. Plickers, Flipgrid. I just tried out Flipgrid for the first time today. I thought that was so cool. So there's a lot of interesting things to try out. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try them all at once. But this is a time where expectations are low, and you can embrace the fact that we can try stuff. We can experiment. It's okay. It's totally okay. Let's talk a little bit about how to apply what students are learning. Let me ask you this. Do students in your class just learn about things, or do they actually do something with what they're learning? It's going to be so much more engaging if they're doing something, because we remember what we do so much more than what we just learned. I mean, you think back to your own school, you can probably remember projects and things that you did. Much better than just, I mean, you remember a way bigger percentage of things you actually do. Now, this is not projects for project's sake. My friend Jennifer Gonzalez of Cult of Pedagogy talks about a Grecian urn project, where students, spend 2 weeks, they study Greek history, and then they spent 2 weeks creating Grecian urns, like, art. That is a waste of time. 2 weeks of class history to create an art project is not applying it. That is a project for a project's sake. That is not a worthwhile use of time. Okay. So what we're looking to do is create something that's going to help students learn. So what would help my students better grasp and remember this concept? And this is a great question to ask yourself, especially once again, like traditional tests and quizzes. I mean, we're trying to do this online and distance learning. You might instead find yourself saying, you know what, I'm going to ask students to apply this and write something or create a video or submit a podcast episode, or like I'm going to ask them to do something with this. And go ahead and give students some of that responsibility and see what they come up with. It might be just absolutely amazing. You might be blown away. Here's the thing, though. You can start small with this. Remember I talked about a quick writing. So it could be something like you're studying a president and you say, imagine what this president would have said to this situation. All right. Or you could say, imagine that this event in history just happened and you had to tweet and you were tweeting about it. What would you tweet? Okay. So it's just a quick writing activity that makes it relevant. All right. So very quick. A quick activity, but everyone's involved. It could be small group discussions if you're in person, or if you have ability to do breakout rooms in your online software, or simple application activities. So it can be simple. So once again, remember, I'm not telling you to do all of this. You just listen for the things that resonate with you and excite you. Okay. If it's exciting to you, explore it. If it's overwhelming to you, skip it for now. Leave it in your notes. You can always try it later. Let's talk about finally helping students be successful. Because here's the thing, I touched on this before, but if you have students who are lost, that is the most unengaging thing. And a lot of times when students are like seeming like they don't care, the reality is that they're actually really confused, or they don't feel like they can do it. So it's very important that we do everything we can to help our students be successful. One way to do that, is to give clear explanations of what you're trying to teach. This is especially important if you're teaching a skill like math. Be really clear in your explanations. Make sure they understand it before you just set them off. Another thing is to scaffold projects. So a clear steps and a process. And as I said, this might really be the opportunity to dig into some project-based learning for your classes. If you can think of something that would be relevant, asking them to research a topic, especially in older grades, if you're learning about something in history or science, say research this topic and put together a podcast episode about it or a video about it. But give them some clear steps. Step 1, research. Step 2, this. Give them some scaffolding so that there's some direction on what they're doing, and it's not just like figure this out completely on your own. So you want to set them up for success, so that they can. You want to set them up for success. Make sure any assessments that you give match what you've taught and practiced. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine, but I know it's very frustrating to students. If you spend the majority of your time teaching this body of material and then you test them on something completely different, that is not fair to them, and that is going to be very discouraging. They're going to get turned off really quickly. So make sure that what you spend, you're assessing what you spend the majority of your classroom time teaching and practicing. That's what their assessments should be over. All right, once again, I just threw out a bunch of ideas. Once again, remember my goal is to pique your interest so that you can pick what you like and, explore those few things. We should not have picked out, don't take everything I just said, pick one. What is one way you can better engage your student? What one idea resonated most with you? And share it in the comments and write it down on your notes. Once again, if you don't have the notes, you can write down the URL teachfortheheart.com/notes1 to use later. Rethinking worksheets, quiz trade, trying Kahoot on their own, doing a quick writing, rethink worksheets. By the way, writing works really great online learning too, because a lot of like Zoom or different things have comment boxes. You can have students type things in the comment box. So that's like a really way to have them writing and sharing with the class. So we guys can lean into this. You know what I will say? God knows what he's doing. And while it's really hard to, I can't let myself think very far beyond the next few weeks because I get overwhelmed and it's stressful. But I think that we are going to emerge from this with our eyes just completely transformed to what's possible. And I think education will be changed for the better as a result of the innovation we are forced to do. This is hard. This is really hard. What we're facing right now. But I think there's going to be a lot of silver linings that we'll look back on when we get through it. I don't know. That's just my thought. All right, let's move on. Step 4. How can we help students take responsibility for their own learning and actions? And as I said, this is important in the classroom. This is even more important online. First of all, you need to believe in your students. We have to believe in them. If we don't believe that they're capable, that is like we are cutting them off at the knees if we don't believe in them. Okay, so we need to believe in our students. Do you ever assume that your students are going to fail before you even start? You might not consciously say that, but sometimes it's in the back of our mind where we're thinking, you know what? So-and-so is going to be able to do this, or so-and-so's not, this isn't going to work for so-and-so. Or if we have that, then it's not going to work. It's not, right? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Sorry. Step 4 was help students take responsibility for their own learning and actions. So we have to believe in their potential, even if they're not there yet. So that's the key. If you're looking at them and thinking, Linda, if I'm being honest, I really don't know if they can do this. Well, think ahead. Think about how you were as a kid. Think about students that you've seen grow tremendously and believe in their potential, even if they're not there yet, and call them up to that. Have a clear image of your mind of what your students could be, how they could respond, how they could come together, what they could learn and what they could produce. Have that vision in your mind and call them up to it, even if they're not there yet. And like I said, act on that belief, even if you don't see the results now. Sometimes results take a lot of time. Sometimes we see the results now, but sometimes the student doesn't reach what we imagined them for another year or two, or not even until college, right? So act on that belief, even if you don't see the results now, even if you don't see the results this year. Call them up to what you believe them capable of. Another idea in this area of teaching students responsibility is to allow natural consequences to teach. So sometimes as teachers, we are really afraid of students making mistakes or bad choices. And I do believe that we want to help students make right choices, obviously, but students, a lot of times we actually learn more from our mistakes and bad choices sometimes. And the reality is that if students are going to make mistakes and bad choices, we need to help them learn from them. Okay. So don't be afraid that, hey, if I give my students this, they might not do it right. Well, if they don't do it right, if they don't respond the way they should, don't be afraid of that, because it's actually an opportunity to help them learn and grow. So what you need to do, though, is enforce natural consequences. Okay. So for example, if a student we're giving a lot of grace here in this crazy situation, but in a normal classroom, in a normal situation, if a student's work isn't on time, there's some type of academic consequence for that, right? So don't bail them out of it unless it's truly an extenuating circumstances. Allow those natural consequences to happen. Same thing across the board. A lot of times we feel like we need to bail students out, right? They didn't try all quarter, and now it's the week that grades are due. It's the last week of the quarter, and they say, can you extra credit? I'm not saying we should never do extra credit, but don't feel only do that, if you feel like it's truly going to help the student, don't feel like you need to bail them out, okay? We shouldn't always be looking to bail out our students of their natural consequences. This is hard for me. I am always wanting to bail my kids out of things. I hate enforcing natural consequences. But look for ways to allow natural consequences to happen. And just the biggest thing is, like I said, when you're tempted to bail them out, ask yourself, is that really what's best for them? Occasionally it is. Occasionally we do need to give grace and extend, if it's an extenuating circumstance or if it's really what's best for the student. But a lot of times what's best for them is to experience a small consequence now so they learn a lesson and they don't have to experience a way bigger consequence later in life. So as I said, don't bail them out. That's the biggest thing. So as I said, an example, a student, doesn't complete a project and they come to you and they say, I didn't have time to finish this. You let it be. I'm sorry. That's so hard. Empathy. I give credit for work, full credit when work is turned in on time. I statement, you can have it by tomorrow. Or, thankfully there's a lot of other grades in this quarter, so you'll have time to make it up, right? Give them some hope there. We can talk a little bit more about that at the end. I'm seeing you guys have a lot of questions, so we can think through some of that together, because I know that's challenging depending on where you're at. So that's not necessarily something that it's like, okay, I can do this all starting tomorrow, but something to put in your back of your mind and start ruminating on and thinking about. This one's really powerful, guiding students to solve their own problems. This can come up in a variety of ways. This can be, if students are having like interpersonal issues with each other. It can be if a student comes, but a lot of times students will come to us and they want us to solve their problems for them. Mrs. So-and-so, I'm not going to have time to do my homework tonight because of blah, 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 blah. And sometimes we as teachers, we like to fix problems. So we go, okay, well, what about this and this and this? But have we given all these ideas? And the students are like, I don't want to do any of that. Okay. So what we can do is we can teach students, guide them to solve their own problems. Okay. And this is just in a conversation. So this is applicable no matter where you're teaching or online, in person. So the first step is to empathize. Okay. So, oh, that's tough. Then what are you going to do? Did you notice we didn't jump in with answers? We immediately put the ball right back in their court. Ooh, that's tough. What are you going to do? Get them thinking about it. Now, if you have a blank stare or a shrug, you could say, well, would you like to hear what others have tried? This is from Love and Logic, by the way. It's amazing. I love how they say, ask what others have tried, because this way you're not actually directly telling it to them. You're saying, well, here's what some other people have done. And then you can give them 2 or 3 examples. Now, they don't have to be, it's sometimes even valuable to give them a few bad examples, give a bad example first. Well, you could just, not do it, or, you could like give a few examples that would be a bad example. Sometimes that can be kind of fun to help them realize, well, no. But the point of the 2 or 3 examples is to get them thinking. You don't have to come up with the magic one. It's just to start getting their thoughts going. So you give an example and say, how do you think that would work? Okay, here's another example. How do you think that would work? You give them 2 or 3 examples. And then, well, I wish you success. Let me know how it goes. Bye. Leave the ball in their court. And so it can be really powerful. Once again, just put it back in their court. Just serving that ball right back on their side of the net, as it were. For an example, let's go through this with the example. I can't do it. I have a basketball game tonight. Oh, we look forward to the days when we have basketball games tonight, but it will, again, basketball games at night again, but it will, okay? So, oh, that's tough that you have basketball game and the homework tonight. Well, what are you going to do about that? I don't know. Well, would you like to hear what others have tried? Okay. Some students decide to really buckle down in study hall and try to get it done then. How would that work for you? Well, some students decide that right after school, they're going to go and work on it and do it then. How would that work for you? Well, just give them a couple examples and say, okay, well, I wish you success. Let me know how it goes. Right? So just really simple strategy to help guide students to solve their own problems. Now, what happens if they make a bad choice? Don't let the natural consequences teach. Don't be afraid of that. If they choose to not do their homework because they have a basketball game, well, we're right back where we were before, right? You enforce the natural consequence. You don't bail them out, and you hope that they learn something so that next time around they will respond differently and make a different choice. Okay. Couple more things for you guys. I hope that you guys are finding these areas helpful. Let's talk about how to help students set and reach goals, which if this goes on, like if distance learning goes on long, I think this will be really, really valuable. You can teach your students goal setting practices. Here's the steps. First of all, you need to set specific and realistic goals. Specific is really important because if you have just kind of a vague goal, then students don't actually know if they hit it. So it needs to be specific and it needs to be realistic. It shouldn't be too easy, but it also shouldn't be something that a student looks at and goes, I gives up on before they even start. So you can teach them how to do this. The younger your students are, the newer it is to them, you might help them more, but eventually they should practice setting goals on their own. The next step is to take that goal and translate it into action steps. Once again, as you're starting out with teaching how to set goals, it's going to take, you're going to have to really walk them through it. But eventually, they can do it on their own as they get older and as they have more practice. So an action step. So if your goal is to improve your reading level, it might be something like, okay, I'm going to practice reading for 10 minutes a day. I'm going to take this quiz. Whatever makes sense, something specific. And yes, you can start this in early grade. They're just going to need a lot more help with it. That's all. Step 3 is to track progress. So just put some type of mechanism in place where they can track their progress, whether they're taking a quiz or recording how much they do. Think of what would make sense. What would be a way to track progress in this area? And if you're really stuck here, you can even almost do a score from 1 to 10. Like rate yourself each week on how you did on 1 to 10. That's some measure at least, right? Just putting some type of measurement in place. And then number 4, set up regular accountability. This can look a lot of different ways. It could be, if you have a self-contained classroom with younger students, maybe you are the regular accountability. Maybe you check in with every student for just a 2-minute conference once a week during a certain time. But if you have a lot of students, if you have 100 students in or high school, you might set up regular accountability with each other. You might give them accountability partners. And so you take, 5 minutes in class and allow them to share with each other and keep each other accountable. So an added accountability check, you're simply checking in, seeing how things are going and adjusting the plan if needed. That's a simple plan for helping students set and reach goals. And that actually comes from The Leader in Me, which is another great resource. All right, we talked a lot about how to help students be more responsible for their own learning and action. So think through right now, once again, remember, don't feel overwhelmed. You're not doing all of this. Pick one thing that you'd like to try to help students take responsibility for their own learning. Go ahead and share that now. What's one thing you'd like to make to help students take responsibility for their own learning? Share that, write it in your notes, and share it here in the comments. Accountability, using the Love and Logic script, teaching goal setting, letting natural consequences teach, not bailing them out. I love all these insights. Write down and then share it in the comments. Asking them, what are you going to do about it? So simple, right? By the way, if you're doing that in person, one of a powerful thing is called turning around and walking away. So you say, I wish you the best, turn around and you just end the conversation. It works with arguing too. I love you too much to argue. Turn around and walk away. They might follow you, but it's still pretty effective. All right, there are so many more strategies that I want to share with you. We could talk about a restorative approach to discipline and why I think it often fails in schools. There's a missing piece a lot of schools miss. Teaching habits and skills for success, what to do with unmotivated students, but we are running out of time. So let's quickly do step number 5. Step 5 is make a plan for continuous improvement, okay? Because once again, remember I told you, you are going to be overwhelmed if you try to implement every idea at once, especially if you're also trying to pivot to distance learning, or if you find yourself pivoting to distance learning at some point in the near future. So there are so many strategies to try, and each one makes a significant difference. However, here's the thing. They are more powerful when you stack them on top of each other, okay? So if you take the strategies, your top key takeaways from today, and you start doing those, you're going to notice a difference. But then if, say, in another month, you pick a couple more and try those, it's going to get better. And then the next month and the next year and then the year after that, over time, it's really, really powerful if you just keep incremental changes, not all at once, just keep doing more and more. This does not happen overnight. We're just going to continue to gradually stack strategies on top of each other, and you'll be amazed where you are in a year or two if you continue to do that. So the question is, how do you know what strategies to implement, first of all? And then how do you not lose sight of that priority in all the business, right? Because we know there's always so much happening with teaching. So how do we keep these strategies front of mind? Well, we need a plan. So I'm going to give you a couple ideas for how you can put together a plan. The first option is to make your own plan. This is pretty simple. You can start out when this training is done. I think there's even a spot to do this on the worksheet. You list all the strategies that you want to try eventually. So anything that was like remotely interesting to you, you make a list. You're not going to try to do them all now, but you just put them on the list. And then you come up with a system to revisit them. So it could be as simple as putting a note in your calendar for like a month out or 2 months out or whatever it is, or, you know, in the summer, and saying, I'm going to look at the list and pick 2 more to try. Okay. So it can be as simple as that, but it's a plan, right? So you don't forget about it. You're putting something in your calendar, you're making a list, you're putting it in your calendar, and then you're regularly searching for new ideas. So you're on Pinterest or whatever you if you follow blogs or Pinterest, whenever you run up with a new idea, you can add it to your list. That's one way to do it. Make your own plan. But if you're interested and you feel like you have some time, I want to suggest we have something that can help you kind of streamline this process, and it's called Beyond Classroom Management. And I do want to go ahead and share a little bit about it with you. We were going to have a very special, something very special for you guys, and part of me was like, man, should I not even tell them about this? They've got so much going on, but I didn't want to not offer this to you because I know it'll be really helpful for a lot of you. So let me tell you a little bit about Beyond Classroom Management. It is in it we give you a workable plan to earn respect, increase engagement, build community, help students take responsibility, and so much more. It's very similar to this training, whereas these are like broadband things that can be applied in the classroom. I just looked through it and I was like, oh man, like the majority of these are also really applicable online, just like this training. This training, I took things from the program, and I did not even design this training for distance learning. It's just the strategies apply either way. So Beyond Classroom Management has all the strategies in one place. We talk more about morning meetings. We talk about short-term recovery, which is a strategy to minimize disruption from really challenging students. We talk about how to make activities more engaging, develop student leadership, teach skills that are needed for success. We talk about how to make a restorative approach to discipline actually work, how to deal with challenging parents, and so much more. The program is designed to be really easy to implement. You can binge watch it or spread it out. So if you have time like this week, you can binge watch it or you can spread it out. Access does not expire. So you can keep access. You can watch it next summer, next year, one lesson at a time, all at once. It's up to you. Once again, it's designed to help you pick the best strategies to try now and save the rest for later, and we help you do it. We help you organize the ideas to easily revisit them. And I even take the notes for you so that you can listen, and we have audio lessons, so you can even listen on the go. Beyond Classroom Management is designed for grades K through 12. It is designed for those that already have a basic control of your class. So if you're struggling with like the basics, then I would recommend starting with Classroom Management 101. But if you feel like I have the basic control, then Beyond Classroom Management is for you. It's for you if you want to build respect and responsibility, and you want your students to be more engaged, and you want more of strategies like you learned here. There's many bonuses in the course. It includes our 5-day classroom management tune-up, printable reminder cards to help you remember what you learned. And if you are a believer, we have bonus lessons that kind of look at some of the topics through a spiritual lens. And we also have an activity template to help you take any worksheet and turn it into a logic puzzle, which is fun. If you decide to join tonight, you'll get 2 fast action bonuses, actually 3. You'll get a copy of our Take Heart and Teach ebook. We'll send you a free enrollment in our 50 procedures that will save your sanity training. And you'll also be entered to win a half-hour coaching session with me. Enrollment includes all 6 modules, the principal manual, lifetime access. You don't have to worry. If everything goes crazy and you don't have time to deal with it anytime soon, that's totally okay. You get all the bonuses, certificate of completion, and then the community within the group. It normally costs $119, but we really want you, if you want this, we want it to be affordable for you. If you want to go through this training, we want you to be able to do it. So you get to choose to pay the price you can afford. And people ask me about this. They're like, wait a second, Linda, like, so if I choose the lower amount, do I get less? Absolutely not. It doesn't matter what you choose. You can choose whichever one you want. It's up to you. Don't feel bad if you need to choose the lowest amount. That's totally fine. You get to pay what you can afford. And these are the promo codes to do that. We have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if anything changes, if you're not happy with it, you just email us and we give you your money back. If you're interested, go ahead and click join now. There should be a button right there to join now to get started. And we're going to do Q&A here in just a second, but you can check out that in the meantime. If you'd like to join us in Beyond Classroom Management, we would absolutely love to have you. We would love to have you join us if you are able to join us. All right. It looks like we already have someone joining us, which is awesome. Welcome. I'm looking at the wrong screen here. All right, if you have questions that I haven't answered yet, we do have some of them marked, but if you want to go ahead and add your questions now, if you have a question that we haven't answered yet, if you want to add it now, so I can make sure that I see it. Shannon asks, is the same offer offered for Classroom Management 101? So yeah, that is my next question. If you could use some help with basic control, we do have Classroom Management 101, which is kind of like the prequel. So it's kind of like the first, and Beyond Classroom Management is kind of like the second step. So this offer is available for both of them, and it's the same codes. Let me put the codes back up here. So it's 2 separate courses, but you can use the Afford promotion on either one or both. And there'll be an opportunity to add it on to your training if you need to. If you go to that page there, you'll see a spot to order it separately or to add it on if you'd like to do that. All right, I'm going to answer. We only have 3 minutes left in the official training, but I'm going to stay on and answer questions for a while. So if you have questions, go ahead and do that. First, though, actually, you're adding your questions in. I need to announce our winners. We have 3 of you won Beyond Classroom Management. So let me pick those winners right now. I'm hitting award. Okay. I'm going to read the beginning of your email address. So the first one is Gabrielle.Salamone. Gabrielle Salamone, congratulations. You've won an enrollment in Beyond Classroom Management. Scott at Flood. There's more to your email address, but I don't want to read your email address on the air. So Scott at Flood, and then there's more to it. You have won a enrollment in Beyond Classroom Management, and then B Tipping. If your email address starts with B Tipping, you have won a enrollment in Beyond Classroom Management. So email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we'll send that to you. Yes, if you need a certificate of attendance, head to teachfortheheart.com/certificate2 to download it now. So go ahead and head there. Welcome, Dominique and Michael, to Beyond Classroom Management. We're so glad to have you. That's awesome. All right, let me pull up the questions and see what we can answer. Is there a certificate? Yes, here's the info. All right. Is this for elementary ed or early childhood? I'm assuming you're asking about Beyond Classroom Management, Angela. Great question. I would say I did not design it specifically for that, but I think there's definitely a lot of apply to that. So if you want to head over to the page, you can kind of check out, there's a spot where you can view all the topics. And once again, there's the money back guarantee. So if you want to try it out, and if you get into it and you feel like, it's not as applicable as I thought, just email us at any point in the first 30 days and we will refund your money. Luke says, I've tried to lead with empathy often. When I do, it kind of comes off as uncaring or sarcastic. Do you have any suggestions on making empathy more genuine? I would say, first of all, it does need to be genuine. It can't just be, it can't be fake. So you do need to honestly realize that, my students have challenges and they might seem silly to me, but they're real to them, right? I know I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and 2 littles. And their problems seem silly to me sometimes, but they're very real to them. So just empathizing with the reality of the problem with them, I think you start there. And then honestly, I would ask someone, a colleague or a friend, to help you with this. Like say, hey, can I show you how I normally respond, and can you give me some feedback? So maybe try around with some different empathetic phrases, and kind of find one that sounds more authentic. Michelle asked, could goal setting involve IEP objectives? Oh, absolutely. I would definitely, that would be a great way to help implement an IEP with goal setting. Definitely. Especially if you're trying to do it with distance learning, then their parents, you, like everyone's clear on the goal. Yeah, definitely. Jackie asked, is there going to be a replay? Lord willing, all the technology cooperates. As soon as I end this training, our software will make a video, and then I'll post it on the sign up page. So teachfortheheart.com/teacher training, teachfortheheart.com/teacher training should have a replay available later tonight, definitely tomorrow, Lord willing. And I'll also try to send out the link to everyone via email tomorrow. Karina asks, what does virtual learning look like with parents and students in first grade? How does writing look like with first grade students online? Okay, great question. And I am not a virtual learning expert, but we're all just kind of figuring this out as we go. So a few ideas. First of all, I have a first grader and a kindergartner. So I taught middle school. I don't know if I shared that with you guys, but now I'm kind of seeing with my own kids what early elementary looks like. And I will our teacher sent home a bunch of like papers for them to do, which was, I mean, great. I mean, they had one day to throw this together. So that they did a great job. But I'm thinking if this lasts long, it would be wonderful if they actually either had at least like a lesson once or twice a day, or once or every day or like every other day. I feel like my first grader would definitely sit at a computer or a tablet and watch his teacher teach him. Like he would definitely do that, especially if it was recorded, so that if there was a scheduling conflict with another kid, that you could watch it later. I think that would definitely be really worthwhile. And so you're kind of using similar engagements. Writing is going to be tough for your that, I don't know, typing is challenging for a first grader probably. So maybe instead they're writing on their own and you ask their parents to take a picture of it and send it to you. Or even if they can't share it, just having them write it is still valuable, or having them draw a picture, even if they can't share it. Or how about this? Have them draw a picture and then have them hold it up. Just hold it up in their video for the rest of the class. So simple things like that. Okay, those are just ideas off the top of my head, but maybe it gets you thinking a little bit. All right, we have more questions here, but first I want to welcome Mary to Beyond Classroom Management, and Lisa and Daniela and Anne. We're so glad to have you guys in Beyond Classroom Management. Let's see if I missed someone. And Mary, welcome you guys. And looks like we've got Bradley and Catherine and Jessica and Linda joining us, and Dawn and Christy. Thank you guys so much. We're so glad to have you. Okay, I often get this question. If you the bonuses, those of you guys that are joining now, we're going to pick who won the coaching call, and we'll send out the bonuses via email probably tomorrow morning. So watch for it then. And then if any of you guys have already joined Beyond Classroom Management and you want those extra bonuses, just email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and we will get those for you. Okay, it is past 9:30, so I'm going to say that the training officially ends now. But as I said, I'm going to stay on for at least another 10 minutes or so and answer more questions. So please feel free to stay here, and I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. Someone asked if we're having your certificate. I just had the link, so teachfortheheart.com/certificate2. Let's see. Kim says, when the class is super chatty because they are friends and immature in third grade, how do you quiet the class? Okay, Kim, I'm going to recommend to you to write down the URL teachfortheheart.com/training because I talked all about that in the training on Monday night. So if you head there and watch that one, you'll pick up a whole lot of strategies that you can check out. So teachfortheheart.com/training. Amy said, I'm just joining in late. Can I see the webinar in its entirety? Yes, but I have to wait. Once I end here, it'll make a video and I'll update the page with the video. So if you head to teachfortheheart.com/teacher training later this evening, once I finished, or tomorrow, it should be there. Okay, Mary says, how do you make consequences stick if parents don't work with you? Okay, so how do I make consequences stick if parents don't work with you? This is hard if your admin also isn't with you, and it also depends on the age of your students. But one thing that you can do is to try to kindly and compassionately help the parents see why you're doing what you're doing. Like maybe have a conversation with them and say, and tell them like, hey, listen, like I love your student. And honestly, there's a part of me that just wants to give them a pass, but I really don't believe it's best for them. What's best for your student is to learn from this. Even though it's hard now, I think they're going to come out the other end way better for it. So I would have that conversation with parents if you feel like you're able to. And then also simply, sometimes we think we have to do what parents say, and we don't necessarily. So sometimes simply sticking to your guns and just saying, I'm sorry, this is how it is, also works. So it depends on your situation, but don't feel like you always have to give in to what they say. Marvin asks, how would you incorporate the Zoom? Zoom is an online software that you can use to conduct like online meetings. And so if you aren't set up in your school with Google Classrooms or like some other software, it's a really easy one to get started with. And I actually just made a tutorial. If you go to Teach for the Heart on YouTube, you'll find it there. It's just 7 minutes long and it shows you how to get set up on Zoom. So that way, even if you like weren't planning on officially doing distance learning, you could set up like once or twice a week a time for you actually to meet with your class. I think that would be so meaningful for them to actually see you, during this challenging time. Welcome to Sharon to Beyond Classroom. Welcome Megan and Christy and Laura. We're so glad to have you guys. Welcome. All right. A few more questions here as I get going. Oh, welcome to Micah and Veronica. So glad to have you guys. All right. At this point, I am not sure who is still here for the training. So I want to make sure I'm answering the questions of those of you that are still here. So if you have a question that I haven't answered yet, if you want to add it now, so it's kind of at the top of the queue so that I make sure I see it. Is there somewhere to get a PowerPoint of tonight's training or notes? Yes, there are notes for this training. Go to teachfortheheart.com/notes1. Teachfortheheart.com, notes the number 1, and you can download those if you need to submit them. Let's see. Is this different than the course I signed up for on Monday? Okay, on Monday, we talked about classroom management solutions, which is kind of like the prequel to Beyond Classroom Management. So let me explain this real quick for those of you that I know it is a little confusing. We have 2 online courses in this area. One is called Classroom Management 101, and that one is kind of about how to establish a calm learning environment. So if you're kind of having trouble keeping order, that's where to start. If you're like, I've got the basics of classroom management down and I want to work on engagement and like building community and all these things, that is what Beyond Classroom Management is for. Okay, so they're 2 separate courses. Classroom Management 101 is kind of like the prerequisite for Beyond Classroom Management, unless you feel like you're already, if you feel like I've already got the basics down, then you can start right with Beyond Classroom Management. Okay, and I really do believe, though, that before you can create meaningful engagement, you have to have order first. Although, like I said, distance learning allows you to mute students. So it's a little silver linings, right? Chelsea asks, wait, where is the info on Zoom? I created a tutorial and it's on our YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube and search Teach for the Heart, I would hope it would come up. I don't know if Sarah can find the URL to it on the fly. I wasn't planning on sharing that. It just popped in my head. I'm planning to put together a blog post on teachfortheheart.com that will share it, but it is not ready yet. We are just scrambling over here just like you guys are. Does a free copy of the book come with Classroom Management 101? I joined this and wanted to be sure before I bought the book. Shannon, email us because yes, there is a special bonus for Classroom Management 101. But it was a different book, but just email us and request it and we can help you out with that. Amy says, is there a certificate from Monday? Yes, I think it's teachfortheheart.com/certificate. I think that's where it is. You can email us if you're not sure, if you need help with it, Linda@teachfortheheart.com. Okay, Kelly, maybe you guys can help me crowdsource this question because this is a good one. What procedures do you suggest we implement when establishing a digital classroom for the first time? Great question. So if you guys have any ideas, please feel free to share them in the comments. But a few ideas that come to my mind. First of all, if it kind of depends on if it's more of an informal, like the class is just gathering, or if you're actually like teaching and people need to be there. So you might have some type of attendance policy. You need to be here, or if you're not able to be here, you should watch it within this set amount of time. Once again, we need to give students a lot of grace, but I do think that the more clear we are in our expectations, that will be really helpful for both students and parents, okay? So while we're really being sympathetic and understanding and making exceptions when needed, I think clear expectations are really helpful for this, okay? So let me see here. So maybe attendance or how long you expect students to do it. You want to have a procedure for if a student, you need to think ahead of time, how do you want students to request to talk? Do they type it in the comments? Do they click the request button? You're gonna have to look into your software a little bit. Are you going to have students normally muted and they have to ask to talk, or are they allowed to just, is everyone unmuted and they're allowed to just say something? So kind of be clear on that. I would talk, kind of think through how is that going to work? And then so those are a few things that I would, practicalities, that you can maybe think through. And then also I would just reevaluate after your first meeting, reevaluate. And then the second meeting you come on, you could say, okay, guys, we learned from this. Here's what I'm going to expect. So don't be afraid to iterate. It's different than a traditional classroom where, day one, like we are all figuring this out as we go. Hope those were a few helpful ideas. I don't know if anyone else has a good idea. Bonnie says, is there a way to extend the sale until March 31st, as that is when I get paid? This sale actually is going to go on for about 9 more days, but I don't think that's going to get you there. So Bonnie, if you email us at linda@teachfortheheart.com and let us know, we are happy to extend it for you so we can get you a coupon code for that. And honestly, anybody that needs extra time like this, I just want you guys, if you want to join this program, I want you to be able to do it. So we are happy to work with you however you need to. Email us, linda@teachfortheheart.com. We will get you set up. Does Zoom work with distance learning kindergarten class? Allison, I would think so. I'm thinking, so once again, basically all it does is it has you and the students like in a screen, and you can just have you showing, or you can let your students see each other. So it's kind of up to you. And yeah, I think, like I said, I have a kindergartner and I feel like she would love, I would love, and I'm sure she would love to sit down and, have with an iPad or a computer and watch her teacher for an hour. 30 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever the teacher thinks is reasonable. You can have them take breaks and come back. I would think that would be very doable. Now, I don't know how much you can expect from them, but at this point, something is better than nothing, right? So I would try it out and see how it goes. I think it could at least be helpful. Once again, give yourself so much grace. If you're contemplating distance learning, just do what you can, okay? Anything is better than nothing at this point. I mean, worst case scenario, if students lose 2 months of school, it's not going to be the end of the world. So whatever you can do is great, okay? And whatever you can do is great. Megan says, my cough. Yes, I coughed in the middle of the training on Monday, and I said, I've had this cough for 6 months, so at least I know it's not coronavirus. Linda asked, how long should a digital lesson be? Oh, man, that's a great question, and I don't have that answer for you. It probably depends on the age of your students, but I don't know. I would just try that out and see. If you want to have here's the thing, especially if you have longer students, and I think honestly, any of your students, treat it like you would the classroom. So in other words, if you're going to have a longer, like if you want to block off 2 hours with your students, which I'm not necessarily saying you should do that, but if you were, break it up. So, you teach and then you say, okay, go get a snack and come back in 10 minutes. Or, okay, now we're going to have a time, we're going to do stretches, everyone get up and walk around your room or whatever. I would have students get up and walking around and coming back periodically. And you can do it with there's a lot of benefits to this, right? You can do that with very little chaos. If you do it in the classroom, it's like suddenly chaos. If you do that there, just everyone's doing it on their own and whatever, So if you're going to have it longer, if you're going to try to teach like multiple subjects in a block of time, then I would just break it up. Once again, I think this is off the top of my head, guys. So hopefully these things are helpful. I'm going to answer just a couple more questions, but first I want to welcome our new Beyond Classroom Management members. Welcome to Shira and Stacy and Veronica and Micah. We're so glad to have you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. All right, just a couple questions left. Cassie asks, how do I sign up for Teach Uplifted? Okay, we didn't talk at all about Teach Uplifted tonight, but Teach Uplifted is a program we have that helps us. It's actually really, if you're struggling with anxiety and just like, how do I deal with all of this? Then Teach Uplifted is a great program because a big key of it is a devotional component. If you are a believer and you want to kind of explore how do I trust God in this time, Teach Uplifted is a great way to do that. We have a full program. We also have just the devotions book if you just want to kind of do it on your own, or if you want to do it together. So teachuplifted.com. If you go to teachuplifted.com, you can check it out there. Sarah just dropped a URL in there too, or you can go to teachuplifted.com. All right, one more question. Esther asks, have you implemented these strategies in the classroom with students of trauma, so broken homes? Have you found this successful? Esther, I'm actually not in the classroom right now. So I am a long-term sub position recently, but I'm actually not in the classroom right now. So I don't want to speak too much to how this would be affected by trauma, because I feel like I'm just starting to understand trauma myself. So I'm not an expert in that at all. But I do think that, I don't know, I don't want to say too much, but I think with students with trauma, I guess my thought would be try to expect a lot of them still. Like, don't assume that they can't do things just because of that, but just be very, give them a lot of grace in your approach. If something isn't working with them, if you get a really difficult reaction, just keep in your mind that might be the trauma speaking, and act accordingly. So I would definitely keep that in mind. All right. Well, thank you guys absolutely so much. Oh, Sarah chimed in. Sarah is more knowledgeable about this than me. Sarah says, in my opinion, these are perfect for trauma students. And I would tend to think so too. I think they're really actually some great we talked about a lot of great social emotional learning tools, and beyond classroom management is more social emotional learning tools. So I agree. I guess I have a healthy understanding of how ignorant I am of trauma and how little I know. So I didn't want to speak too soon, but you're right. I think they actually are really perfect. All right. Amy said you're having trouble signing up for Classroom Management 101 and Beyond Classroom Management. Shoot us an email at linda@teachfortheheart.com, and we'll be happy to help you get set up. I'm sorry that you're having trouble with that. Alternately, if you go to teachfortheheart.com and click courses at the top, you can enroll for them separately if you need to do that. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much. Two things now. If you are still looking to sign up for Beyond Classroom Management and you want to get in on those bonuses, you can have, I won't close that down for another hour or so. I'll leave it open. Okay. So I will send out the bonuses in the morning. So if you need to kind of think it through or check out the page, or you're still working on checking out, no worries. I will give the bonuses to everyone that signs up tonight. And but speaking of which, welcome to Christina and Kimberly and James. So glad to have you guys. Thank you so much. It means a lot to me that you guys are here and that so many of you are joining us in Beyond Classroom Management. Thank you so much for that. If you have a question that we weren't able to answer, I think I answered most of them, but if you have one that didn't get answers, feel free to send us an email at linda@teachfortheheart.com. Linda@teachfortheheart.com. And I'm happy. Sarah and Alex, our wonderful customer experience managers, they'll be happy to help you with anything that you need, or just simply to offer advice if we have any for you. Well, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to just close us out with a word of prayer in light of everything. Father, thank you for your great goodness to us. And I just pray that you will calm each heart tonight. There's so much that is out of our control. I pray that you will just direct our energies and our imagination to how we can support our students, rein in our anxieties, Father, and our fears. Help us to turn to you each moment over and over again when we are afraid. And I just pray that that your purposes will be done in this, Father. I know that you have a lot that you're going to be doing in our hearts and in our lives during this difficult time. And I just pray that we will yield to that we will surrender to your will, even though it's not what we would have wanted. And I just pray that you will do an amazing work in each of us, in our hearts, in our students' hearts. Open doors, Father, to speak your truth and your comfort to each other. And just give a special measure of comfort to each teacher tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Well, thank you guys again so much. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you have a wonderful evening. And I hope that we're able to connect again soon. Bye. And if you found this training helpful, feel free to share it with a friend. Thanks again, guys.